Ladies and gentlemen, New York, the state of New York, has removed the ability for Governor Cuomo to engage in certain political activities, Cuomo to be stripped of pandemic powers and legislative deal. So you have this slow demise of a really arrogant, incompetent, Democratic icon. And that should show you, that should tell you, I mean, this man had a book on leadership lessons during the past year, which should tell you everything you need to know. There have been 3 people leveling allegations against him. The most horrendous thing associated with him is the decisions that led to thousands upon thousands of lives. And Democrat Ron Kim, it was like the only Democrat at first to go up against him, so God bless this man. And I support President Trump, and I'm saying to myself, okay, so Trump has been the obsession of people who've blamed hundreds of thousands of lives upon one human being, but media has propped up Cuomo in New York. He's presided over the worst outcomes objectively from the New York Times statistics. The worst outcomes. Now you have this picture of him also. It's a very bizarre picture. He just puts his hands all... I don't even want to get into it. Cuomo to be stripped of pandemic powers in legislative deal. The deal would roll back broad powers granted to the governor in the early days. Okay, legislators from New York's Assembly and State Senate struck a deal Tuesday evening to strip Governor Andrew Cuomo of his pandemic-linked powers and return matters to local control. The deal would reverse basically all the extrajudicial or, extra legislative mandates, or it would prevent him from engaging in decisions without the input of the state legislature. So that's one thing. So hit subscribe to this channel right now. I didn't have a live stream tonight. I almost certainly will have another live stream tomorrow, but the uploads have been picking up. And I notice it's really weird. I notice when I do live streams, there's no increase in subs, and when I do only uploads, I do get an increase in subs. But anyway, the live streams are fun, and they're really awesome. We have such great people. We have the best moderators, so be there when we have live streams in the evening. Tell your friends about this channel. I've been talking about this story for a long time. And unfortunately, the way things work in America today, public, image, perception overshadows reality. The perception of Cuomo is that he was this hero to be championed, and the perception of Trump is that, it's all his fault. But if you look at the governors from Democratic-run states, you can go to the New York Times statistics right now. They have the greatest amount of lives lost, aggregate numbers, and they have the highest per capita rate. So you can't just say, well, there's a lot of people there. Yeah, but there's also the highest per capita rates. They had the most draconian responses. They had the most heavy-handed, draconian, reactionary response, however you want to call it. I mean, which led to the highest unemployment rates. So you have the highest unemployment rates. And, here, I think everybody should understand. So New York, the New York State Legislature, and this wouldn't have happened, by the way. The New York State Legislature removed his ability to do a lot of things, and this wouldn't have happened without all the problems and accusations and scandals and controversies that he's associated with. They're calling for him to resign. All they need to do is either vote to impeach him or get a recall to where he's forced to resign. Or I don't exactly know how it works in New York. But But this is what happens when you have one party rule. This is what happens when you have one political party. Media propped this man up. He had a book out. He was viewed as and I never understood this. I never understood how this man was viewed as somebody to be emulated. I had no clue, and it's that's why I say Trump should never get back on Twitter again. He should never get back on Twitter again. He should never get back on Twitter, because what took place on Twitter was the following. They were people throughout the country who didn't really care about politics, looked at Trump on Twitter and said, I don't like this guy. I don't like this person. I don't like who he is. He's a bad human being. And they didn't see first president to step foot in North Korea to begin détente between North and South Korea. President Moon Jae-in of South Korea stated that Trump deserved the Nobel Peace Prize. This is a fact. President Moon Jae-in of South Korea also stated he wants Biden's administration to continue Trump's foreign policy. Then they say, oh, he cozied up to despots and tyrants. It's like, no, it's called diplomacy. I mean, he's criticized when he doesn't engage in diplomacy, and then he's criticized when he does. Then you have the Abraham Accords, peace between Israel, UAE, Bahrain. I mean, you have so many great things that he was a first president. He allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever. Okay, a human being who is a racist human being wouldn't do that. This is not a difficult concept for people to understand. Oh, he could still be. Yeah, I guess so. But that's not the hallmark of somebody who's a bigoted individual. That's not what, like, if you are known for a despicable characteristic, then if your actions are the opposite, if your actions are good, maybe you should be, I don't know, you don't have to be championed, but maybe you should be given some credit. Again, his Twitter account, his Twitter profile overshadowed his accomplishments. So President Trump, engaged in good things. Whereas Cuomo did not. He was completely and utterly blindsided. Go to look at the State of the State address. I think he had a State of the State address, like presidents have a State of the Union address. He had a State of the State address in, I believe it was February or March of last year. He did not mention anything to do with the pandemic. He was completely and utterly blindsided. And what took place, ladies and gentlemen, was not only was he blindsided, but New York became the epicenter. New Jersey and New York, and God bless the people of both states. But they became the epicenter. And in March 1st, it's almost a year anniversary. You know how they do the same thing with Trump? A year anniversary. It's the year anniversary of when Cuomo stated the risk remains low for the people of New York. So, repeal extraordinary powers granted the governor last year, provide for an orderly transition, limit further modifications to directives, restore the right of counties and municipalities to issue executive orders without seeking state approval. So, this man had an iron grip. Require the government to provide online reporting for all executive orders, provide transparency for all. This man had an iron grip. He was directly responsible for all the horrendous things that took place. Directly responsible. He was directly responsible. Trump was not directly responsible for what happened in New York or New Jersey or Democratic-run states. He wasn't. The governors were. And the mayors were. De Blasio gets off completely scot-free from all of this. De Blasio made almost as many mistakes as Cuomo. But see, that's the thing. You have two media centers, New York and L.A., and you have Democrats without any opposition. So in 2022, hopefully in 2022, there's a Republican Party that actually stands up to the Democratic Party or media. But you have a situation where you have virtually a virtual monopoly on political discourse and thought and decision making. And you had a year of people's lives, an entire year of people's lives that they'll never have again. And the reaction was, well, we have to engage, we have to tank our economy, draconian measures because science. And it's like, but you had the worst outcomes. So how do you just... It would have been worse. Well, but Nebraska and you can look at like all the red states have the lowest unemployment rates, and they have the lowest per capita rates, and they have the lowest number. And you can look at Texas and Florida. Florida is an example of how DeSantis is a million times better. Florida did, according to the numbers, a million times better, and they have more people than New York. But see, again, it's like Democrats, they relish, they love saying that, Trump supporters, they don't look at facts. The numbers themselves disprove them. It's not rocket science. Go look at the New York Times statistics. The aggregate numbers and per capita, the highest per capita rates, the top 3 highest per capita rates are Democratic-run states, blue states, with a virtual monopoly. Like Democrats have a virtual monopoly of political discourse on those states. 7 of the top 10 in terms of aggregate lives lost are all Democratic-run states. And the top 12 states, go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I have the link below in the description. I'm not making anything up. You can go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics right now. I would love to have anyone explain to me how it's Trump's fault that the top 12 states with the highest unemployment rates it's all Trump's fault, and the lowest states are red states. Is that Trump's fault also? The entire country, by the way, like there are some parts that are doing okay economically. The worst hit economically and in terms of health are Democratic-run states. That's a fact. It's not Trump's fault. Everyone was blindsided, including the president, including Trump. Everyone was blindsided by this. There was nobody and all the wonderful experts were blindsided. And all the government organizations and multinational organizations were blindsided. And they kept changing their tune. And then they said, well, it's the research that makes us change our tune. Well, okay, but you can look at Sweden, you can look at red states, you can look at, I'm not saying anything because you can't say anything in this day and age. You literally just look at the numbers. You go look at the numbers and you know what? Get back to me or whatever. Look at the numbers. Or don't get back to me. Look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. The aggregate numbers from the New York Times pertaining to this. Go to the New York Times. Go and there's a section for this pandemic. Aggregate total, like lives lost and per capita. Look at the number. Look at the states. You tell me how it's Trump's fault. And you look at the states with the lowest numbers of lives lost and the lowest per capita rates and the best economies. And you'll see red states. So, again, it's not a blue or red state issue. They made it a blue or red state issue. Every person who lost their lives, if they didn't do exactly what was told, oh my God, you see? The gleeful. You see? But you can't do that to them in the reverse. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. I'm trying to speak in roundabout ways because you cannot talk about these things. You just simply cannot address these issues. That's why, I'm always speaking in an algorithmically friendly manner, which is why I have a perfect record with YouTube. Because I follow the guidelines. But like I said, go to the New York Times statistics. That's all. Go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And look at the numbers. And go look at the words from Cuomo and Eric Swalwell and others. Nancy Pelosi, look at their words. Look at their words. Did they downplay things? Yeah. This country, unfortunately, because there's no Republican opposition, because there's no true Republican opposition, runs on just pure public relations. It's like pure public relations. That's it. It's just everything is PR. Everything is PR. And it's unfortunate. And look, perception oftentimes overshadows reality. The perception was that Cuomo was this amazing savior. He was awesome. He was a model. I love that. I mean, you couldn't find bigger imbeciles. I mean, he was a model for how things should be conducted. As this was during all the horrendous decision-making with elderly homes and all that, they were calling him a model. How do you call this man a model for how things should be done? How is that even possible? How is that even possible? How is he a model for how things should be done? When even now Democrats are saying, my God, this man ran the state into the ground. And you're not going to get any actor or director or apoplectic, morally superior liberal to admit. Even one of the ladies from The View now is like, well, maybe we should ignore everything about, what was this? Maybe we should ignore everything about Andrew Cuomo. Of course, because they're seeing their moral high horse. Like, they live to judge and condemn, but they don't judge and condemn themselves in the manner they level at Trump. They truly think that they're better and moral people, and they're not. They actually engage in more their activities. They're able to actually do more damage because media covers for them. They barely have a majority in Congress, and that's with every conceivable possible advantage, from Hollywood to late night to intelligence operatives to Republicans voting against Trump. And like I said, Trump gave them what they needed. Trump should never again be on Twitter. That's, Anyway, give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe right now. This is an interesting development. Thank you so very, very much, everyone.